Welcome back to the 1111 Synchronized broadcast. Everyone take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Yes, it is a new day, y'all. New day, new moon, new energy, new earth. All of it is it's all well. And I hope that this is meeting and greeting you in the best of spirits. If you have any topic requests that you'd like to hear covered on this channel, please direct them to my inbox at Agent K21 Podcast. On Instagram and Twitter at Agent K21. Please reach out. Let me know what you'd like to hear. If you'd like to be a feature on the channel or if you'd like me to be on yours, please let me know. Reach out. I'm all down for collaboration. And so with that, I have a very, very, very special guest joining me later on in this episode. So please stay tuned. You're going to want to hear this. I definitely recommend that you stay and listen. And if these messages are helpful and if they are resonating with you, please feel free to share them, subscribe. However, do all of that. So as we are ushering in these new energies and new templates and new timelines, we have to be really adaptable to the new. And so what is adaptability? Adaptability to me is being able to adjust to changes with ease. It's being able to go with the flow. It's being able to see things from a positive perspective, right? It's being able to handle uncertainty with a confidence, knowing that all is well. So as we adjust to these new ways of being, new ways of learning, we have to adopt new principles, new mindsets, new ways of interacting. And all of that can be very frustrating, right? They can be very complicated because naturally we kind of resist change and growth. Although we know change and growth is what we need and what we desire and how to get to where we're going, it often is, it can be very difficult to let go of the familiar. And if you have any trouble with letting go, I did an entire episode called Let Go. So go check that out. If that resonates with you, go and check that out. But it's a very delicate process to be adaptable, and different experiences we have will help us adjust and be flexible and be able to go with the flow of things without resistance. And so, some of you may know this, but growing up, I was a military dependent and traveled a lot. And so with that, I kind of naturally had this gift of non-attachment and being able to adapt and to adjust. And I think most of us who grew up in that certain way, we kind of naturally have that or have been groomed to have that. And so it's very interesting because when I first moved overseas, back in 96, I moved overseas. And when I first moved there, everyone had on face mask. The very same face mask that most of us are using now is the very same mask that I saw when I was, in my childhood. And at the time when I saw it, I was just like, hey, I'm a kid. I'm just like, this is some Mortal Kombat right here. We got some Sub-Zero action going on. Like, I didn't know what was going on, so I think it's very important if you have children to talk to them about being adaptable and how to adjust to the new normals and, instill them a sense of safety and protection and security versus fear and denial and illusion and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's important that we, talk about these things in a clear, conscious kind of way. And so, those type of experiences have really aided in being able to adjust, always moving. There's always this uncertainty when you move. You don't know how things are going to go, but you're able to adjust. And so when we adapt to our environment, we have the energy to change the environment that we enter into. And so I think adaptability has two sides to it. One side is being able to adapt to uncertainty and unknown situations. The other side is being able to remain yourself and letting everything else adjust to you. And what I mean by that is, I think often we can confuse being adaptable for being a people pleaser. And that's further from the truth, because people pleasing is really self-abandonment. And those who grew up in codependent type of environments do that naturally. They don't even recognize that they've abandoned themselves. They say yes when they want to say no, things like that, out of fear of rejection, out of fear of abandonment, out of wanting to please someone else, out of fear of feeling guilty or not good enough. The difference between people pleasing and being adaptable is you're not adopting a new situation that doesn't align with who you are. You're not changing yourself to adjust to this situation. And it's like a chameleon adjusts to its environment by blending in. But it does it out of survival. And when we adapt to a situation, if we're doing it out of survival, it's usually out of fear, and that can coincide to the people-pleasing dynamic. But when we adapt out of compromise, and when I say compromise, I'm talking win-win situations, not win-lose situations. When we adapt out of security within ourselves, out of feeling secure, we're not adapting to relinquish ourselves. We're adapting, I guess it is in a way, for survival, right? We have to adapt to the new normal. And so as we're doing this whole transition, we don't know what's going to be on the other side of this pandemic. We don't know how things are going to operate again. Some may be wanting to go back to things as they were. Others are pushing for a different, in this unknown, in this unfamiliar, in this uncharted territory. But as we do that, we have been groomed for the survival of the fittest. We have been groomed for adaptation and being adaptable. So it's in our nature to adapt. However, there's usually a resistance there. And so to ease into this whole process, what I would recommend is really sitting into meditation. Sitting into meditation, sitting in with yourself, finding your center, finding your groundedness, and really, instead of fighting the old, start creating the new, right? So for those who are working, what kind of work environments do we want to have? For those who are not working, what kind of work do you want to create? What kind of work do you want to have? What kind of life are we trying to get to? And that's why I say it's a twofold, because the other people will adapt to that new normal, right? And so it's different for everybody. Everybody adjusts differently. But the path of least resistance is the way forward, the path of ease, being able to adjust your mindset, your thought process, the way you interact, your actions, your behavior. All of that is going to be adjusted as we adapt to a new normal. And so, I tend to see that people who are more right brain, people who are more creative, artistic, tend to be have more ease with adjusting. Doesn't mean it's impossible if you're left brain. It just means you may have your own different set of challenges. And you have to be mindful of what set of challenges you have and how to work with what works for you. Myself being more right brain, being a creative person, being a musician, you kind of learn how to adapt really quickly, right? If you're playing with music with a bunch of other people and they randomly decide to change the key, you can either change with them or you can play in and get out, Or, if you're going to perform and there's a last minute change, how do you adjust to that? Do you adjust with resistance and fear and anger? Or do you adjust with patience and with love? How do you make the most out of a challenging situation? That is how we adapt. That is how we adjust. So that's all I'm going to say about it for now. Please stay tuned to check out what a good friend of mine and I are going to talk about and how adjusting and adaptability may work for you. I hope this greets you in the best spirits. Please let me know what you want to hear. If these messages are helping you, please feel free to subscribe. Feel free to share them with other people. The more we know, the more we know. And so thank you all for listening, and stay tuned until next time. So, welcome back, everyone. Welcome to the 1111 Synchronized Podcast. Today, I have a special guest. This is a throwback guest. We haven't really seen or spoken to each other since we were about 11 or 12.
Oh,
So,
man.
it's been a minute. It's been a minute. So, I'm very grateful and honored that you wanted to do this and agreed to do this. So, thank you for being my guest today.
Of course. This is just, a catch-up session, right?
Exactly, exactly. And so, like I usually say, I'm going to let your energy introduce yourself. So, if you can just tell us anything about you, just anything you like to share.
Sure. Yes. So I am Ryan. It's a long story. Just joking. Currently I'm gonna call myself an artist. I before was kind of shy about saying that, but say what you are so you can become it. So I'm an
Yeah.
artist. And I have an awesome husband and son that keep me motivated. And I call Richmond, Virginia my home right now.
Welcome. Definitely. So, again, thank you. I really wanted you to be the guest today because not only are you an artist, so you're creative and you kind of know how to adjust to, uncertainty because right now everyone's kind of up in the air, everything's uncertain right now.
Yeah, definitely.
And also just, we both have the same experience of being military dependents.
Sure.
So we kind of have that, we're kind of used to ambiguity and used to just transitioning and all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to talk about like how to adapt to new changes and how has it been for you growing up as a military dependent?
Sure. Yeah. I feel like there were different levels of like the time periods of me moving around, like as a young kid,
Mm-hmm.
because the first time I moved out was a year, so obviously I can't remember it, and it was just a part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
But once I got into maybe the like 8-year old to maybe 13 range, that's when
Mm-hmm.
I realized I'm leaving my friends, I'm leaving school where I finally, kind of found myself. And the change was always so demanding of me that I just wanted things to be consistent. So I
Yeah.
found, I guess, ways to kind of keep things from changing too much. So that was like having certain shows that I like would have my grandma send me tapes of. So I just wouldn't be out of the loop. Like each week I'm going to watch,
Mm-hmm.
Daria or something.
Yeah.
And then like you said, me doing art has always been a part of my life. I just didn't realize it as a kid that was a soothing part of me, just being able to draw in my sketchbooks of pop culture mainly back then, but it was always there for me. It was the friend that wasn't going to move away.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say just having some beacon that doesn't change in a changing world was helpful.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I think it's funny that you mentioned your grandma sending you tapes. I don't know if you remember this, but you had let me borrow one of your tapes and it was a BET tape of like all these music videos.
Oh my
You remember that? And I didn't even know what BET was at the time. I was just like, what is this? Like all I knew was MTV, VH1, but then I saw this and I was like, yo. And I had loved music videos then. That was always something soothing for me.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah. So coming to the States and then being like, oh, this is
This is
BET.
it. Okay, 106.
Right? Exactly.
My
Exactly.
grandma was keeping me hip, yeah.
Shout out to grandma because man.
It's true that, and it's funny saying, tapes, because I am talking about VHS tapes.
Right.
That these were packages being sent from my grandma that like from New Jersey to Japan and took weeks, but she was consistent with her tapes that it was like a
Mm-hmm.
regular thing for me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I love her. Shout outs to grandma.
Definitely. So, how many times have you guys moved in your experience?
Um,
What are some places you've been?
Sure. Yeah. So I was born in Jersey, New Jersey, and we moved to Rota, Spain when I was a year old. 3 years after that, we moved to Chinhae, South Korea. 3 years after that, moved to Virginia Beach, Virginia. 3 years after that, moved to Sasebo, Japan. 3
Hey.
years after that, went back to Virginia Beach, Virginia. And then my dad retired and I was able to finish high school, but then I moved myself to Richmond to go to college, and I stayed here. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
that's about what, four different moves. I think the craziest move was coming back to a place. Um, because I always envied people who had like the hometown friends, like, oh, this is my friend since
Mm-hmm.
kindergarten. I'm like, I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But moving back
Yeah.
to Virginia Beach, and actually back to the same house, because my parents decided to buy a
Mm-hmm.
house in Virginia Beach the first time we lived there.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to see, familiar neighbors again, and
Wow.
going to high school, like, yeah, I hadn't seen these people in 3 years, but it was familiar faces. So that really helped me
Mm-hmm.
transition into my 8th grade and then freshman high school experience a little bit easier than if I had moved to a
Yeah.
completely new place during that time.
Mm-hmm. And how was that like adjusting back to people that you haven't seen and you're like, both of you have changed and grown since then and kind of adjusting? How did that work for you?
You feel like it, like a time capsule in a way,
Mm-hmm.
because I remember them as 10 years old, but now we're 14, and that's a huge puberty gap change.
Yeah.
So like you're hoping that they're the same person, and so a lot of the time there was a bit of disappointment, that just being 13, 14, you're finding
Mm-hmm.
yourself as this new kind of young adult.
Yeah.
So people who were my best friend before weren't quite my best friend then. Even though
Mm-hmm.
we had, tried writing letters during those 3 years I was in Japan. But it just
Mm-hmm.
fell apart, and you just had to learn to adapt. And I think that's what's helped with all my moves, that I have become a quick adapter, but it still hurts when you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to cling on to something and it's not the same anymore.
Yeah. And that process of having to let go is like, it's kind of like a
Oh
grieving
yeah,
process.
yeah, big old breakup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I know you mentioned, writing letters and stuff. Were you able to stay connected throughout all of your moves and reconnect when
Yeah,
later in
I
life?
think so. I would say the easiest time that happened was when I was living in Japan, and when I left there, the new age of technology, internet happened.
Yeah.
So MySpace, oh my gosh, that like
Yep.
reconnect, like I didn't feel so far away from, my Sasabonian friends, and was able to
Hmm.
still, we wrote letters, but like the internet was a lot quicker. So and then
Yeah.
Facebook came along when we were in college. And
Hmm.
no, so I think that definitely helped. There's one friend from before Sasebo, when I was maybe 8, that we're still actually friends just because of letter
Nice.
writing.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but I think I, like I said, I was always trying to hold on to something that didn't change. And so connections with people was what I like desperately grasped onto. So I was definitely a letter writer, and
Hmm.
just wanting, even if it was once a year, just checking in with a friend that meant something to me.
Yeah, that's definitely good. Like you mentioned, just staying grounded and connected. And right now, with the social distancing we're experiencing, it's important to remember that just because we're apart, we're still connected, you
Yes,
know?
I kind of feel like right now, like everyone's starting to get on my level of like wanting to be connected. Like everyone's feeling how
Yeah.
I've always felt. Like you're so
Right.
far, but nope, let's try to do this. And like with my family, we're in 3 different states, and we're using House Party to play games with each
Mm-hmm.
other and still see each other's
Mm-hmm.
faces. Shush.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I just recently got put onto that. So definitely. Definitely. Now, as a young person growing up, I feel like most people in childhood, if not everyone, experiences a feeling of like feeling powerless. You have no say in what you wear or what if you go to school or not. But being, military dependent, it creates like a different type of just, okay, I guess I have to move. I guess I have to move.
Yeah.
How did you um kind of get comfortable with all the changes?
Bribes. My parents had to bribe me every time. No. I think uh, it helped that I had siblings. Like, I can't imagine being a military kid, and being the only one solo child. So
Mm-hmm.
I had my sister who's just 3 years younger than me. So that's a built-in friend at home when you haven't made friends at your
Mm-hmm.
school yet. You both
Mm-hmm.
get to talk about your experiences of eating kind of by yourself or having to introduce yourself to, the third class of the year, from moving.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like her, like I have a younger brother, but he's 10 years younger than me. So he didn't get to experience that much of the moves. But my sister Misha yeah, she was probably a rock and didn't know she was my rock.
Yeah.
And with my parents,
Mhm.
they always tried making it easier for us, making sure that when we moved to a new place, we got like a new wardrobe of like clothes, to try to make us fit in a little bit easier.
Mhm.
um, they made sure to, like, with the letter writing, they would talk to my friends' parents and like explain like how we were moving and how it would really lift my spirits if their kid could keep writing back to me when I send my
Mhm.
letters. So I think it was like a team effort.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely helps to have that support,
Especially when you don't
and
have a
just.
say, like you're talking about.
Mhm.
So with my parents understanding the position that they were putting us into and respecting my feelings, I think was
Yeah.
beneficial for me.
Mhm. And how difficult was it for you making friends? Like every so 3 years or so, you have to make a whole new friend. Like, I mean, you mentioned, having that time where you're like, okay, trying to get your feet wet and kind of learning everything. But how was transitioning to friends and just different education system? How was that for
Uh,
you?
Definitely hard in my early years. I was very quiet and just observant more of the time, and then
Hmm.
some weird thing would happen where, oh, I made a friend, like
Yep.
throwing a tennis ball on top of the school roof and letting it roll back down to me, and someone just coming up and like, oh, can I play with that? And then, oh, you're my friend
Hmm.
now. um,
Yeah.
but every New Year's, like, and this is no lie, since I was 10, every New Year's I would say I need to talk to one more person, and that was really just to kind of help me open up. So by the
Hmm.
time I was maybe 15, during like one of the major moves, I just had to break out of my shell and just be like, hey, I'm looking for friends because I'm lonely, and just being honest with that. And then I had way
Hmm.
more friends coming in because everybody else is lonely and looking for
Yep.
friends too. Who would have thought?
Hmm. Exactly. Transparency is like the
Yes.
key. It really is. And I know you mentioned this to me too. And also for the parents out there who are adjusting to, this new normal, the homeschool environment. How has that been to adjust for you as a parent and just, you know, adapting to the homeschool
Uh,
environment?
you I think you gotta be on your toes for for homeschooling. You want to have the rigid schedule, um, but you're in a different environment. So many distractions at home, so you kind of just have
Hmm.
to go with the flow and make it interesting for the student. Really, like, try to center things around them. Um, right
Yeah.
now I'm having to homeschool my son because schools are shut down. But he's really
Hmm.
into superheroes, so all of our lessons like involve them somehow. If we're counting,
Nice.
like how many superheroes are part of the Avengers team, and if we took away Falcon and
Hmm.
Captain America, how many would be left? So
Nice.
yeah, I'd say that just being able to change quickly help. So like even overseas, I was homeschooled sometimes before being able to get enrolled in a school. And my mom, I think I learned from
Hmm.
her just like being able to adapt.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, I thank you for being my guest today, and I thank your family for your service and, just serving the country and everything that you've done, thus far. And I know there's so much more to accomplish. But I want to give you a chance to just give yourself like a little shameless plug, how we can find you, reach you, anything that you offer. Um, let us know.
Okay. Well, let me plug myself with my art right now. I
Please do.
I recently got a little digital tablet iPad. I really enjoy doing some digital illustrations, but I also do watercolors and portraits of people with their pets or houses or anything like that. But you can find me on my website, www.cplusart.com. And Instagram, if you're too afraid of actually going on the full-on internet, you can find me at C+_RL Moses. And then from there, you can find me on so many different things. But I'm doing a bunch of art challenges, and I really like people's feedback because I am trying new things. I went to art school, so I'm used to critique and pretty brutal ones. So yeah, just shoot me a text on there, message, and I actually have it where I want to be people's pen pals. So if you like my art,
Nice.
be a pen pal, and maybe you'll get some free art. Who knows?
Nice, lovely. Well, thank you again so much. Gonna go ahead and wrap up here, but thank you. It's been a pleasure, and we'll
Yes,
catch up.
thank you so much for me being on here.
No
Bye.
problem. Absolutely.